As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
There's no crying in baseball!
I ate his liver with some fava beans. Nice cliente.
That was totally wicked!
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change!
And welcome to another episode of Your Next Favorite Movie. I'm your host, Josh G. And today we are in week 2 of Best Month Ever 2, Electric Boogaloo. So let's all welcome Ethan to the show.
Hi, I'm back. It's like a year since I was on here. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. And yes, it is exactly a year. Last year, this month, we were doing the first time. Now we're on year 2. So trying to make this an annual thing.
Nice. I'm going to have to find so many films that I love.
I think for film nerds, that's not a problem at all.
It's like, which one? Because there's so... I remember I had like a short list of 20, I think, this time. So I'm like, okay, I talked about Star Wars. I can't do Star Wars again. So what is that? I was like, well, I could do that, but we might cover that at some point. I'm like, what's a safe film to cover this time that I know we're not going to cover anytime soon?
Well, to be fair, last year Ian came on, said he had one of the bullets in the chamber was Little Miss Sunshine, and I think
you're right.
I think it's your guys' number 1 movie right now. It's close if it's not.
Yeah, there's like a good. I think it's like that. There's a not tying 3, but they're like really neck and neck. I think it's like not Memento, the other film, the one that is Hugh Jackman and
the Prestige.
The Prestige. That was it. I completely forgot the name. I nearly called him Patrick Bateman as well. I've been watching I was watching American Psycho the other day, so it's just stuck in my brain. No, I think it's tight. It's like that, and there's probably another one that I'm completely forgetting. Like The Hate You Give, I think is up there too. But no, we had a good run of like really good films. Then we watched Jurassic World.
Let's level this out a little bit. Let's not get expectations too high here, right? So why don't you take a minute and tell everybody what to expect when they tune in to Best Film Ever, since we've been talking about it without talking about what it is.
So Best Film Ever is it's a podcast, but also like a podcast cinematic universe at this point. We have a weekly show called Best Film Ever where we cover a film that's rated very highly on stuff like Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, usually above like 85%, and people say if it's like the best film ever. So we do massive spans of cinema history. We did Bonnie and Clyde last week when I'm recording this, and this week we're doing Blade Runner. So we cover the highest of quality films throughout history and sort of discuss between ourselves if we can come to a general consensus of what the best film ever is between a large group of people, and just sort of go through it and all the cinematic mastery of it and what things can mean and all the technical stuff. And then we also do little shows of like Disney Plus shows. So we just finished doing Kenobi and covering that each week. And we sometimes do Doctor Who. We cover the pilot episodes of some shows and see if they're good or not. And we also just review like films when they come out and see if you should see it or skip it, because that's called See It or Skip It, which is a great branding.
Yeah, no, you guys are definitely putting out a ton of content every week. I couldn't imagine having to put out that much content each week. I couldn't do it.
It never stops. I have weeks where I know we recorded something a couple of weeks ago and it pops out. I'm like, oh yeah, we did that, because we do a lot. We're on a break with Doctor Who, but I still sometimes forget that we have it, that it comes out like when it does. But no, we have a lot, because there's 4 of us on the weekly table, and we always sort of mix between each other. So sometimes it could be myself and Ian, sometimes it could be Georgia and Ian discussing a film, or Liam and Ian discussing a film or a pilot. Also, there's always lots of variety whenever you tune in, which is nice.
Yeah, and you brought me a film that, to be honest, I probably wouldn't have watched on my own. I'd heard of it, so I knew vaguely what it was, but man, I gotta say, I'm glad you did. This was a good one. Taking us back to 2014.
Yeah.
Starring and directed by Jon Favreau, this is Chef.
There are chefs that cook food that they believe in.
Be an artist on your own time. It's my restaurant.
So you're threatening to fire me now?
It's what I'm prepared to do if you don't cook my menu.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm lost.
You're never going to be happy cooking for someone else.
So what are you gonna do?
You're gonna laugh. Tony, Carl's got a taco truck.
For real?
Luke's here, like you guys are having so much fun.
Dad got me a knife.
What?
He says I love you.
Chef, rated R. In select theaters Friday.
Yeah. It was one that I remember. I have a lot of people that when I'm like, oh, what's a film you recommend? And I'm like, oh, Chef is like a good sit-down film. They're like, I've not heard of this. Or if they do, there was this push in 2016 where it became like a meme and like a group of people. So it sort of got like popularity from that again, almost. But no, it's gone under the radar because it's almost an indie film, but also not. And it just exists in its own microcosm. And it's not like the best rated. It's like pretty middling. So you're like, it's a fun, funky film. I think is the best way I can describe that for someone.
So 2016, is that when you first saw it, when you heard about it, or when did you first check it out?
I first saw this in 2014. There was there's a YouTube channel I used to watch for film reviews called Pretty Much It, which is now like a commentary film commentary channel. But they used to cover films, and they had like a weekly roundup of like films you should see. And they said they said Chef, and I was like, okay, that's I was in Cambridge, and it was on at one of the art houses, and I love the concept of it. I love Jon Favreau. Cooking's great. I love cooking, so I sat down and watched this. Like, it must have been like a month after it came out, I think, and it was doing the rounds in the UK. And it was one of those things where I just sat down and was like, no one knows about this film, like with like global acclaim, but this is special. This is a special little thing.
I kind of have to agree with you there. I didn't expect going in that this was going to be what it was. And it is a feel-good movie. Like,
yeah.
So tell everyone what Chef is about for those that don't know.
So Chef is a film directed starring Jon Favreau, where he plays a guy called Chef Carl Casper. And he used to be a fantastic, renowned chef and doing some of the best dishes that people could find. And eventually he settled into this very mundane, paint by numbers sort of corporate job in a fancy restaurant, which is overcharges and doesn't really have anything of substance. And eventually when he tries to break out of that mold and do something different, he gets knocked down, and he finally quits that industry and goes on his own independent road of making nice home cooked food truck food with his son that he's kind of been distant from a long time, and his best friend. And it's about him sort of reclaiming not just his identity as a chef, but also as a father, and learning that there's more to just his career.
So I'm going to ask you this just because I wonder if Jon Favreau doesn't basically start the MCU with Iron Man, does he get to make a film like this on his own?
No, because this film is kind of based around his Hollywood journey. Because he was like, his character sort of mimics him in the sense, because they even make allude to the fact that in his dithering old age, he's been pouring out the same kind of food, the same kind of meals, and because of the middling reviews, he's also had like a gain in weight, which is the same story as Jon Favreau. And this is kind of like a middle finger almost to Iron Man 2, because that was a corporate nightmare with everything that he wanted to do that he couldn't do, and then obviously that was kind of critically panned by a lot of people, and then he set off to do his own kind of thing. And Chef is that thing in the film. He goes and makes a Cubano food truck, and Chef in a sense is the Cubano food truck. He finally gets to do what he wants, and by the end of it, obviously, like, we see that Jon Favreau's career in Hollywood and the film industry has had a resurgence, obviously. So there is a hell of a real life analogy for the food industry being like Hollywood, because it's very corporate and bland and samey, and there's no real pizzazz. And when he gets to finally do that, people appreciate it again. So there's definitely truth to that. That without the MCU and without him kind of getting run down, we don't get this, and probably we also might not get Mando. I think that like there's a lot riding on the coattails of this, because it kind of pushes him back into the mainstream as a director and a writer, I think.
Okay. And another thing I found interesting was the fact that this thing is taking place then the first few years of Twitter, it makes Twitter a big deal. And that's the first time I've seen that in a movie where Twitter is such a huge thing.
This is it's a very social media savvy film, especially for 2014, because like this era, everyone's sort of like, oh, you got your Tumblrs, your Twitters, your Facebooks, and it's kind of they don't put it into films very well. It's always kind of like included some weird promotion, but this one, it understands social media. They use it as a plot device and as a tool, and they also show it in really interesting ways. When the tweet sent, the Twitter bird flies away, and you can see it like go into the ether and go, oh, this is a bad thing. Or they use it as this really interesting visual narrative too, because you can see the different types of social media. This is also really dates itself because it has Vine, and Vine shut down like a year or two later, so it's a hell of a time capsule for the early 2010s. But you see all of these different things, and they're utilized so well compared to when it's like a joke like, oh, I just Vined my Twitter and I tweeted my Facebook, and this it makes it real. It makes it seem really real compared to this like corporate idea of how people use social media. But it's a tool, and they show it as a tool, and they use it as a social platform too. And it's really impressive to make it visually interesting too.
Yeah, completely agree. But as you know, we don't go too deep into detail on these things. So let's move on to the next part, and that is where this movie really doesn't lend itself to it, but what would you like to see if you got a sequel to this?
Ooh, there's some narratives you can go like analogy wise, especially for like the film industry and stuff, that now that he's finally got back into the game and he's becoming a well-renowned chef again, and he's got all this backing and all that, is he getting a bit too in over his head and doing all these things, and maybe there's a bit more corporatized synergy going? It's weird. Like you can't like replicate that kind of joy you get from this film because it is very one and done. But if you dare and do it, if Jon Favreau for some reason was like Chef 2 too chefier, I would love to see the chef crew at like a food festival or like one of those cooking competitions. I think that would be hilarious. Not that it would work, but I think it would be a really interesting thing. You get like chefs from all the different sides of America doing their different signature dishes, and they're all played by other directors that have had sort of middling careers at some point. I think if you lean into it and make it kind of a parody of itself, with still sort of having the same theme as the first one, you could kind of go somewhere there. But again, like it's one of those trying to get blood from a stone kind of things for a sequel idea, because it's so it wraps itself up so neatly by the end.
So now let's say this movie's not that old, but let's say they decided to redo this, remake this, reboot it, whatever, and they didn't want to. Favreau didn't want no part of it for some reason. He has other stuff going on. Who do you think would be good in some of these roles?
Ooh, I've been thinking about this of like who's sort of a good foil for those things, and I was thinking Jon Favreau's character, Chef Carl Casper, someone who started really well in the film industry and kind of had a fall from grace almost for different reasons. I think Brendan Fraser could bring that kind of energy and that performance of someone who started so high and then had a real fall because of whatever experiences he's had to go through. And also people make fun of his weight gain and stuff. So there are these parallels between Carl Casper and Brendan Fraser, and I think he can bring that emotion and humility really well to this kind of character because they've both been through the ringer. I was thinking Sofia Vergara's character, who plays the ex-wife, I can see like Rosario Dawson doing that very well because she's also she's an actress of Cuban descent, and obviously the whole thing centers around her father inspiring Carl to make a Cuban sandwich store. And I think there's a really nice dynamic you could have there with it. The one that I'm really liking, and as I was writing this, I realized I basically just was like, who's in Star Wars that I like? Because John Leguizamo's character, who is the really charismatic, fun best friend who's on for the ride, Pedro Pascal. Because I don't know if you've seen the new film. I can't remember the full name, The Unbearable Talent of Nick Cage or whatever it's called. But he plays this really charming little guy who just loves film and loves Paddington, and I think he can bring that exact same energy without being like too psychopathic. I think he can play that really nice friend so well. And for the son, I decided, what if, because I've Star Wars on my brain. I was trying to think of child actors, and there aren't really many in the zeitgeist that I'm a fan of. And I think when I say this, Ian's gonna feel this through the Force or something and like scream. But I can't remember her name, but the girl who plays little Leia in Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think could do like some really nice chops of a child who's feels kind of neglected. And also when you swap that gender, you have a really interesting story about a father who has been absent from a girl who does need her father and is inspired because, you know, you need that. And with the two friends, it also can show her that there's this really nice friendship between men, and they look out for each other, and you have all of that. And I just think she could bring some heart to that, being like a tech savvy little child.
Okay, so and you may not have thought about this one, and I'm not gonna spoil who it is, but let's just say there is a cameo in this as the ex-husband.
Oh yeah.
Who would you like to throw in as a cameo? Who do you think would work?
Oh, see, I was thinking about this, and you can't really top who it is because I think they do it so well. But it's just Oscar Isaac. Oscar Isaac can do smarmy. He can do like charismatic, and I would love to see him strutting around like an office like that, sort of saying the same lines, but he'll have that like almost poison when he says it. Like you can really feel it sting, and I think that would really work well for that kind of character. I'm basically just going through all my Star Wars people that I know, but it's because it's one of those films that you're not going to get like A tier like Oscar winning, because this is just a nice humble little film. This isn't like a big AAA. It's not going for Oscars. It's like the food itself. It is this content, filling, warm, heartfelt meal. It's that you get from like a local food vendor. And I think with like those Oscar winning actors, you don't get that same kind of experience.
So let's do this one last thing. Want to get people to take a chance on this. Give that final pitch.
Okay.
Sell them on Chef.
Okay, so if you like Chef, if you watch Chef, I think you will love it for it's the way that it utilizes cinematography when cooking. It brings out a passion of cooking. If you love anything to do with how food is portrayed, you know what? If you like Ratatouille, you would love this film because it brings the love of what you do and the family you have and the friends you have, and it is from like point A to point B. This film is like a constant, like it just goes up and up. There is never a moment where you feel upset. It fills you full of joy. And there are so many films where they have like a low moment, but there isn't. And when I first watched this film, it was a point where every film was really depressing, and there were points going, oh, something bad's going to happen, but it never does, and it's a constant high. And the way it utilizes real world aspects of social media and just everyday life, it grounds it and makes it real, and it kind of fills you through with this kind of almost hope that if I feel kind of trapped in whatever dead end job I'm having, but if I'm passionate about something, I can kind of do the same. And it utilizes a basic human feel of just wanting to be who you really are, and I think it will speak to anyone that watches it.
Can't argue with any of that. Ethan, I think that sums it up. We're going to wrap this one up. Tell everyone where they can find you, where they can find the podcast.
Yeah, so if you want to listen to my lovely dulcet tones more and hear just film analogy and analysis of all of that fun stuff, as well as anyone else you've also heard so far, you can follow us on any podcast app, which it will be Best Film Ever, and we'll have all the fun stuff. We have a Twitter, which is also Best Film Ever Pod, which is a great place to interact with all of us. I have two Twitters, which is great, which is BFE_Ethan for the more podcast centric stuff. And if you from like my film analysis and like breakdown stuff that goes more in depth at points of things like different fandom things and just things in general. I'm also Dren Gear Gardener because I love Star Wars, as you can tell from all of my examples that I give. But no, it's the podcast is the main place to interact and sort of understand more of not just what I do, but what everyone does. And you can see the community that's grown, because the podcast community that we have on Twitter is just wonderful. It is probably one of the most positive communities that I've ever been part of online, and it's growing and it's great. And if you love Josh's podcast, like it's the exact same positive community, and also Josh interacts there as well. So everyone's there, and you'll have a great time.
He's absolutely right. At ynfmoviepod on Twitter, that is where the majority of the podcasts are most active. I'd say that's where you get a hold of all of us. For everything else, just go to linktr.ee/ynfmoviepod. It's got the podcast platform, social media, the YouTube channel, my personal letterbox, so you can see what I'm watching. That's not included on the show. As for next week, week 3 will continue as Liam joins the show to talk about the Sylvester Stallone directed, John Travolta starring Staying Alive.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that.
Until then, you guys take care, and I'll talk to you next time.